Hi, and welcome to Growth Talks podcast. It's a place where you can find tools, suggestions, advice, ideas, and so much more on personal and professional growth coming from experts in various areas. My name is Snezhana. I'm your host for today, but I'm also a leadership trainer and an executive coach. It is a pleasure to talk about a very interesting topic today from different perspectives with my guest, Iva Marinkovic. Iva, I'll stop here and I'll let you share about yourself. But before anything else, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nejana. And first of all, thank you for inviting me here and for sharing the idea of talking about this interesting topic. And thank you all for joining and for clicking on this link and listening. Yes, Nejana said, my name is Iva, and by vocation, I'm a communicologist, but currently working as a managing partner at Empple. For those of you who don't know us, we are an employer branding center of excellence, and we are working both for community through various events, meetups, and one flagship event that we have in October, and also with companies helping them to, let's say, elevate their employer brand and together to actually elevate the whole market in this area and to educate, to mentor, to help the whole community grow, basically. So that's in short what we do and what I do there.
Sweet. Anything else you want to share about yourself before we dive into the topic?
No, I think that's good. I know that people can reach out to me after this, so
Yeah.
I think it's all good. But thank you so much.
All right, absolutely. So, as you may have hinted, since you are involved with employer branding, even though you're a
Yeah.
communicologist, we are going to be talking about employer branding today. And when you and I met to discuss how this is going to go and what we really want to focus on, one of the things we mentioned is how can we look at, we called it 360, So of
Yeah.
course, what it is that the brands or the organizations themselves can do, the management, the leadership, and all of that. But then also, as just as a regular employee, if there's anything that we can do to help the business that we work for, especially if we're passionate about it, succeed. So that's the idea today. I know it's a big topic, but we'll try to give some answers and maybe some tips and advice on how they can go about it. That being said, my first question is, what are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about employer branding? We've started hearing about it a lot in the past few years. At least I've started hearing about it a lot. Maybe it's been talked about a lot longer, but there are a lot of things that we hear around. So, from someone who's in that
Mhm.
world, what are the things that you mostly run into as a misconception or a myth?
Yeah, that's a big first question, actually. I mean, there are so many misconceptions about it, and you can already see it in the job ads for these positions because
Hmm.
they're different things are expected of people who are working in employer branding.
Okay.
So you can maybe even say that the whole role of employer branding is one huge misconception. So
Yeah.
when I
Okay.
first started working in employer branding, I think the biggest misconception was that we're going to fix everything.
Yeah.
That person, like a mythical creature, that person is going to come and fix the entire brand, the corporate brand. They're going to elevate the hiring. They're going to like put one tiny little bow on everything that we are doing and to create this amazing picture and amazing image of an employer. But I think that we are a bit past that. So
Mhm.
that happened a few years ago, and I think that was a misconception in the start. But right now, what we can see is that one of the biggest misconceptions that companies have, especially those companies that are just introducing the employer branding as not only a role but a field that they want to work on, is that it's just a campaign, something that you're going to do once
Okay.
to kick off in some sort of project, some sort of promotion, whether it's a post on social media, whether it's some interesting creative job ad or a commercial TikTok video, whatever. It's just a campaign and it's a commercial that you will put out there and that's it. But actually, employer branding is so much more than it. And what we as, not only we as Ample, but the whole community, I think global community of people working in employer branding, what we are trying to educate the market on is that It's basically we should look at it holistically, and we should
Uh-huh.
look at it as a hub. I like to call it a hub inside the organization that is breaking down silos in the organization, and that's working with all of the different people in the organization, because as we all know it, we're working with people, and what we are working on and the campaigns that we are creating as tools of employer branding, let's call it like that, is something that is communicating to people. So we're not selling a product, we're not trying to market a cookie or something like that that you will sell to someone, but we're actually talking about the workplace where people
Right.
should spend 8+ hours. So we always need to start from inside. We always need to start from internal experience that people have, and to see what's happening inside, how people are seeing it, what can we do to make it better, and then based on that to think about the initiatives and everything that we can and should communicate externally. But
Mm.
this is digested piece, let's say it like that, because it's a whole lot of processes and projects that you need to kick off and kickstart to actually come up to these initiatives and everything. But let's say that it's a huge misconception that you can create just one campaign and make everything better in employer branding.
Right. I know at some point, maybe that's still going on, but at some point, people were discussing, is this marketing? Is it HR? Like,
Yeah.
where does it belong? Is it a little bit of both? And if so, do you need to know both areas to be an employer brand specialist? So I know that, is that still something that's unclear for people? Is that
Yeah,
still
I mean,
happening?
yeah, probably for the companies that are just now introducing it, so they're
Uh-huh.
not sure where they should put it.
Hmm.
But as they evolve, and what we can see in a lot of companies, as the employer branding position evolves inside the company, you can see it as a, I want to say standalone position,
Hmm.
but it's actually a position that is communicating with the entire company. So it doesn't
Right.
matter where it sits. It's completely relevant whether you sit in marketing or HR, because you're going to have to communicate with marketing, with HR, with internal communication, external communication, employee experience, depending on the structure of the team actually inside the company.
Right.
So in the end, it doesn't matter whether it's in HR, whether it's in marketing. I mean, from my experience, like I say, since my background is marketing background and communication background, I can say that maybe it's better to have that kind of background in order to be an employer branding. But I know a lot of people who came from HR background and are still amazing at what they do.
Right.
I mean, I say marketing and communication because it's good for employer branding to have these types of knowledge and skills to craft a good message, to
Right.
understand better your audience. But still, people from HR know people, and that's basically what's the most important part of the whole communication, to know with who you're talking to, and how to approach them, what are their needs, what are their pains. And people from HR and from people teams are actually people who know this. So
Right. They
in
know
the
their
end, it
audience.
doesn't matter. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you said start from within, right?
Yeah.
Uh, within the organization. With that, is there, or actually, probably there is. So what it is, what is it that the organizations can do, be it a small or a large business,
Mhm.
um, to encourage the employees? Because we if I want to position myself as an organization that's um, good for new employees, that's a great workplace to be a part of, great team. I am going to do that as a business, but then of course my employees are crucial in sending that message out. So,
Yeah.
what is it that organizations can do to encourage their employees to truly share this employer branding message,
Mhm.
but not feel like, oh, another thing I have to do, or yeah, they tell us to do this, but we don't really feel that way. So, how to go about it to really mean it and for employees to feel that.
Yeah. I mean, recently I had this discussion in one, I think, LinkedIn post about authenticity.
Uh-huh.
And because this is a huge word that people are throwing around and what it actually means. And my point of view on authenticity is if you have to brief someone to be authentic, you're doing it wrong. I
I
mean,
love that.
yeah,
So true.
being authentic is a process, and you can't like create, okay, this is how our authenticity looks like. No, it's something that you can't actually describe. That's something that lives independently of everything else. So the first thing that we should always do to encourage people to share is to give them space to feel like they're heard.
Okay.
And I think that's already something because they will see that they're involved, they will see that they're making impact and that it's their story as well. And people tend to share more negative experiences than positive. I think it's just in our nature. But when they are part of something, if they are creating something authentically as they feel it and as they see it, and it's encouraged, you're doing a good job. So if they have a space to share this knowledge, if they feel like they're being heard inside their organization, you're already on a good path. And I think that's one of the biggest failures of, let's say, advocacy programs that companies are
Okay.
building, because they are like educating people on how to create content, how to write a good social media post. And that's like the 10th step that you need to take. Because first of all, you need to see, okay, what is it that keeps you here? What is it you love about this organization? What can we make better? What is your story? So people first need to see that they're part of it. They need to embrace that it's also their own story and that they are not just a tool that will send that message across or share the message or post. So it's not only about empowering them on how to communicate, but to make them realize and recognize what is it that they want to communicate, what is their story and their message, because it's their company as well. There
Right.
is a really good saying in not only employer branding, but I think that everyone that is in any sort involved in cultural projects in organization is that whether you work on your culture or not, you have a culture.
That's true, right?
And I know that you know this. So yeah, I mean, people need to see that they're part of it and they are the one who are building this culture. And I think as a consequence of all this labor will come their involvement and their engagement and their sharing of these stories online. And you can see that people, when they're happy in their organization, when they feel recognized, when they have good leaders, when they're empowered to learn, to grow, they will share this because it's also part of their journey and their development as whole person. I mean, we need to start looking at people holistically because they're not just part of organization during their working hours. They're still people who go back home after work and have their own lives and their own journeys. So they're not just a tool that we're going to use to, or a channel that we're going to use to send a message across, but actually people who are living this story and being part of our story as well.
Mm. As you're sharing this, Eva, I'm thinking it
Mhm.
probably starts with sharing, the vision, the mission, the values that each business has. And I know it's a kind of a cliche. As businesses, we do work on the mission, the vision, the values, and we do share them in the sense of you can find them on the website or, you know, the first employees get to hear about it. Maybe they even get to participate if it's a really small organization and creation of those. But pretty much it's like you join an organization, you can see their mission, vision, values, and that's where it stays. So is it part of an employer branding specialist person
Mhm.
to bring that more to life so that those words don't aren't just on a paper? Is that where you would start? I guess maybe my question is, why do companies struggle with that encouragement?
Well, I think uh, there are many different answers to these questions. To answer your first question, yeah, definitely values should be something that is first on radar for people from employer branding and basically in all people positions. And values should be something that is guiding us.
Mm,
Also, for people in employer branding, EVP is a huge part of it because it shapes all of our initiatives and everything that we later on build as activities and something to send this consistent message across. But why the company struggle is because it's hard sometimes to see the impact of labors that people from employer branding and from HR or TA have on the company. And when we start to get awareness about their impact, that's when the management actually sees the value in it.
Okay.
So I think that we need to learn. When I say we, I mean people from HR, from people in culture positions, and it's hard for us because we are people working with people, and usually from communications and much more connected to letters than numbers.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We definitely need to start learning the language of numbers and the
Mhm.
analytics that we can actually showcase our results and okay, this is the impact that we are making. So you can see the jump when people are more satisfied, when they're more motivated. You can see that it's directly impacting their performance and the results that they're making. So there are a lot of different ways how we can showcase our impact to the management, and I think that's the biggest struggle because from one hand people in our positions don't have the right tools to do it, or sometimes they're even afraid. And I mean that's okay, even I was really afraid of analytics when I started working on that, but I had a
Same
really
here.
good manager. Yeah. But I had a really good manager that helped me to actually understand the stories that are behind these results that we get through all of these surveys and research and everything that we're doing. So I think that's the big struggle because there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of miscommunication between management and maybe people in our positions in explaining these initiatives, showing the value of these initiatives. We know it, and it seems like a common sense, like we need to take care of people, we need to make them engaged and motivated. And yeah, but for business, that's always the question, okay, how is that going to make more profit? How is that going to make company grow? And yeah, it is common sense, but on the other hand, for them, they need proof. They need numbers. They need to be shown in their own way and in their own language. So I think that
Right.
that's what leads actually to that big struggle. But
Mm.
coming back to your question around values, that's definitely something that I think that big struggle for many companies is living those values that are just letters on a wall, so
Mhm.
nicely framed words that we can see in offices. The part that is usually missing from that process is the rollout of values and implementation of values and how they're being lived inside the organization. So I think that co-creation with people, not actually briefing them, these are our values and use them in meetings, but co-creating with them initiatives, different rituals inside their everyday and how they can use these values, whether it's in one-on-ones that they have or maybe some team meetings, or actually to have them in, even if not in every day, then at least on a weekly level to be in touch with the values in some steps. So
Right.
I think that without actually ritualizing them, I hate that word, but it's really good at describing. Without ritualizing values and using them in different settings inside the organization, you can't actually expect anyone to live these values because
Yeah.
it often happens that people don't even know it. If
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
not living it, if they're not using it, if they don't have it in their fingers, yeah, it doesn't matter that it's framed and hanging on a wall in their office. It's really that they actually don't know it.
I agree. I agree. And lots of, more often than not, really, these are common sense things. Like a lot of companies have as their
Yeah,
values transparency or transparent communication or, so it's not something that's so abstract and it's a special skill that you need to acquire to be able to live the value. It's really what people generally do day-to-day basis. Like if you're
yeah,
doing your work, you're doing your 100%, whatever that means on any given day. You're trying your best to be good at what you do. You're trying to be productive. You're trying to grow and learn. Most companies have these as their values. You show up, you do your best, you try to
yeah,
contribute, and you participate. And I love what you said about making it kind of a day-to-day thing or just making them aware like, oh, you did an amazing job today. This just shows that you're living one of our values, which is, I don't know, contribute your best or whatever it is. So just
Yeah.
even just reminding people that by being a professional, you are already probably living most of the values of the business anyway. It's just
Yeah.
more about
Exactly.
how it becomes a part of who we are as a professional working for an organization. Um,
I mean, the big
yeah,
role there always, sorry for
no, 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 go
interrupting, but
ahead.
now as you were talking, the biggest role there in that process usually have leaders. So
Right,
if your
true.
team leader is not mentioning these values, and it doesn't come natural to them as well, so they need to be either trained or in some way guided through that process. But if they are not mentioning them, if they are not using these values in their everyday communication with the team, you can expect people to actually use them. So
Absolutely.
leaders are always the biggest ambassadors of, when I say leaders, I mean like a middle management or team lead. So they are the people who are the ambassadors of changes, of transitions, of values, of anything that needs to be transmitted to people. Let's say it like that. But also, one big issue that we usually see in companies is that you can see the values on the wall, but they have zero connection with what is actually happening and what the
Mm,
culture is inside. For
mm,
example, I remember that when you mentioned transparency, a lot of companies have transparency as their value, but people have no idea about anything that is happening inside the
right.
organization. Zero transparency. So it's a two-way street. If
Yeah,
we want to expect of people to actually live and showcase our values, we as leaders and as managers need to show them that we are also aligned with it and that we are the ambassadors and examples of how they should be used.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
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 I mean, sometimes you just need to redefine them. It's okay if you don't want to be a transparent company. For some companies, that's security risk to be
yeah,
really fully transparent, but then just sit down and refine them, redefine them, try to actually come across the values that are already lived in the
right,
organization, in the culture, and show people what it means and how they can contribute to it.
right.
So leaders and alignment, definitely.
Yeah. I would also go, I agree with the leadership role in that, but I would
Hmm.
also say even higher than that. Yes, the middle management is kind of the connection between, depending on how big the organization is, but it is the connection between maybe the C level and the employees,
Hmm.
or however many layers there are, right? But it does have to start at the very top as well, you know? So for
Yeah,
example, let's say there's the founder, the CEO, the management, and then employees. The CEO is a team leader
yeah,
of those managers
definitely.
that, that
For me,
manager.
that's a common sense, but now you reminded me of what we just talked about. Sometimes things that are common sense to us need to be communicated. But
Right.
yeah, definitely, it always comes from the top. It should always come from the top.
Right. So, as if I'm leading a business and I don't honor certain things, but I expect my managers to honor it and transfer to their teams, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah,
Eventually something's going to come up. Someone's going to say, but hey, hang on. There's something going on here. So I think it's kind of like top to bottom and bottom to top approach, really.
yeah.
We all need to contribute. Mentioning the bottom to top approach, I know, and I've worked in organizations where people really do have impact.
Hmm.
However, they're not often aware of what's going on or how they impact a certain business, how their ideas contribute to growth, whatever. So
Hmm.
let's say you're not a leader, so no leadership positions, you're just an employee. How can organizations, how can do a better job, they do a better job at showing or I don't know, how can those employees understand the impact that they have?
Hmm.
Because they may already have a lot of influence, they're just not aware of it. Usually, I'd say people, oh, I'm just working here. Nobody's going to listen to me, or I'm just one of many. Who cares? But some businesses do care. So how do we make sure that those
Yeah,
people still know that every single employee matters in one way or another?
yeah. That's a big question, and if we had more time, I would now go into
Sorry about that.
elaborating why. No, 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 no. I love it. I really love it, and I love that question. I would go deep into elaborating why OKRs are the best thing that can happen to company. And I know that some people will hate me because it's a really huge change and transformation needed for a company to actually go into using methodology of OKRs. But the
Hmm.
whole idea of OKRs is that each person have their own goal that is contributing to a higher goal of the organization. And there it's really simple. You have it in black and white. This is my piece and this is what I'm doing to contribute to that big puzzle of the company.
Right.
But
Let me just briefly interrupt. OKRs, for those who don't know, is
yeah,
objectives and key
key
results.
results. Yeah, sorry for
Just so we
that.
can.
It's a type of methodology for goal setting for companies, and
Hmm.
usually comes from let's say above, because you have one company or more company OKRs, like company objectives that need to be achieved, and
Right.
then they are branching down to all of the teams, and in the end, almost each person, I mean, not almost, each person is either owning their own OKR or they're involved in some of the
Part of.
OKRs, having their own objective that is contributing to the higher objective of the company.
Mm.
And there you really have it in black and white,
That's
how
right.
you're contributing.
Yeah,
But
I haven't thought of that much, but yeah, that's an easy way to
you
go
have
about
that
it.
impact. You have, okay, this is my OKR and it's directly impacting the company OKR, and this is how my work in this quarter or whatever the time frame is that
Right.
people, the companies are setting their OKRs, but this is how I'm contributing. But in the companies where people don't have this, uh, either they're not using this methodology or they're not really involved in the way they're
Hmm.
setting their goals and KPIs. And sometimes it's really simple. It's just up to leaders to tell them. I
Mm.
mean, you can just take that one-on-one that you have either once a month or whenever and say, okay, this is what you achieved this month, and this means this and this for the organization. And doing this, you're helping us to evolve, to grow, to
Right.
make more profit. So sometimes it's really simple and we don't really need to overcomplicate it to show people how they're actually impacting the bigger picture and how their results actually impacting the profit of the company and the growth of the company.
Right.
So we don't have to overcomplicate it with OKRs and everything. If the company is bigger, if they have this way of
Yeah.
setting the goals, it's easier. But if not, it can also be easier with just simple recognition
Yeah.
in the organization, because
Yeah.
it's important for people to see their impact. It's important for people um, to have a purpose driven job, not only to go there and do their tasks and that's it, but to know that the tasks that they're doing are connected to some higher goal, to something in the organization that is making some sort of impact. Now, these drivers are different for different people.
Right.
But then again, in the end, it's up to leader to know which drivers are actually the ones that are big and important for their team, and to use them to actually drive these conversations and to show people recognition for their good work and for everything that they're
Mm.
contributing.
Yeah, I agree. I would add though, that each employee has that responsibility as well. Yes, I mean, from somebody who comes from management, I definitely am all in for it is our responsibility to teach
Mm-hmm.
our teams, the people we lead, what we need, how to go about it, what they can do, and so on. But it is also on each and every employee. If your leader, if your team leader, manager, whoever, doesn't come and say, hey, you did a good job with this, or this initiative helped XYZ, go and ask, is
Yeah,
what I am doing contributing to this business in any
yeah,
shape or form? I love working here, but I never hear anything back about my work, or, I don't get any feedback. So don't wait to get that recognition. Of course, it's nice
that's a
when it
really
comes
good point. Yeah,
unwanted, but it just comes spontaneously. But
yeah,
if you're not hearing from your leaders, if you're not hearing from your manager, ask for it. You don't need to be in a job where you don't get that two-way
yeah,
communication. So
exactly.
the first step is if you're not getting it from where it should come from, we'll go for it and ask for it. So I think I just wanted to add that little piece because,
I love that.
and I'm
Yeah,
totally up for, if you're in a leadership position, you absolutely have to be the go-getter and you have to do the first step. But as employees, if you're not getting that, because not every leader is as aware or as developed, maybe they're new in the position. So help them out
Yeah.
by going and saying, hey, I need this from you. What about
Hmm.
this? We talked about XYZ. Where's that going? How is that coming along? So it is more responsibility on the management and the organization
Yeah.
itself. But as employees, we also can encourage some of those things.
Yeah, and I think that now we need to take a step outside of the organization and try to step into our shoes of educators in the market and people who are working with other people. And what I can say from my experience that people usually don't feel empowered to do so. And what I came across, especially for maybe some younger people that are in junior or media roles, is that they're actually not aware that they have a power to go and get it.
There's that too,
And
yeah.
exactly. They don't have any concept of managing up. They don't have the power to manage the communication and the relationship that they have with their managers. And I think this is a huge topic. And it's something that people should really, really get some education on because I came across with it talking with my coach in the previous organization and also with my
Hmm.
leader.
Hmm.
I really usually want to mention him whenever I'm talking with anyone because he was really an important person in my professional life because he actually educated me on how to communicate with a leader, how to set expectations, how to
Right,
set that relationship, and that it's a two-way street. That it's
right,
always a two-way street, but people sometimes just don't feel empowered enough or are not even aware that they can do it. It seems like a small thing and it seems like a common sense, but I was so surprised talking with people that said, yeah, this is actually blowing my mind right now. I had no idea that I can actually do that, that I can actually take charge of that relationship. So, yeah, I really love that you mentioned this. And I think that it's a really huge topic. And definitely it's up to each of us to define our own journey in the
right.
not only organization in life. I mean, our job is a really important part of our life, and if we don't take charge of it, if we don't try to control it and drive it where we want it to be, no one will do that for us. So yeah,
Agreed.
I love it. I love it.
I think no, but I mean, I when I started out, I didn't know I could just go and ask, because we grew up being taught just shut up, do the job, find the job,
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
complain, don't. So when you come from that mindset of, oh, I got a job, I do what I'm told to do. I think nowadays generation is a little bit different. And not that we're that old to start with, but it's
Yeah.
so much changed in just such a short period of time. And so now, I think people are more driven to initiate conversations like that. But even if is someone who didn't know I could do this, I learned it along the way, and I think like you said, it's an important concept to continue talking about. Eva, I think we can do this for hours and hours, as I feel with
Yeah.
most of my guests. However, to spare people's attention and time, um, I think we could wrap it up here. Before we do that, any tip, advice, anything that you want to share that maybe I didn't ask or we haven't covered so far?
For employers, definitely talk with your people. They're
Hmm.
your biggest asset. And I know that people from employer branding and HR are usually struggling with ideas for initiatives, for
Hmm.
activities, and they're coming up with so many different things that people are not either not participating in or not using. Just talk with your people. You have your audience inside your organization, and they're eager to help you help them. So I think for employers, definitely that. And for people, what you just said, take charge of your own life, take responsibility in shaping your own journey inside a company, and ask anyone that you see as relevant inside the organization how you can contribute, how you're already contributing, and if you want to make it better, make it better. So definitely that. Yeah, um, we all actually have the power to work in purpose driven jobs and to have fulfilled life, and it's a shame to not use that power and to not actually use that chance. So I think that's basically the sum up of everything.
I love it. Thanks. In case someone wants to connect with you, work with you, how can people reach you? Where can they find you?
I mean, you can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm guessing that maybe you can add the
Yes,
link
yes.
or something, the contact. You can always
Hmm.
find me on LinkedIn, and you can follow Ample on social media, on LinkedIn and Instagram. And definitely, we can work together either as a community project, or we are also working with clients as consultants. And my partner and I are both certificated for design thinking, so we are driven
Nice.
by design thinking principles in everything that we are doing. So everything that I just talked about, the co-creation, talking with people, it's all part of our process. And we see it really, really empowering for organizations, especially when we work with them, how they are being educated throughout the process. And I think that's our number one value, actually, the education and empowerment of people. So
I love it. I love
I'm
it.
always open to connections. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, we'll definitely leave the links as we always do. So if you want to get in touch with Eva, you'll have all the means that she mentioned in the description. For those of you watching, if this is something you're interested in, if you like the topic, you know the drill, like, subscribe, share, let us know what you're interested in so that we can bring more content like this your way. For the time being, Eva, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure
Thank you.
chatting to you. Hopefully, I'll
Same
see you
here.
in some other episode.
Thank you so much, Nejana, and thank you all for watching and for staying up to this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. See you around, guys.